Welcome to the latest episode of the World Metal Congress. I'm Alexander Milas, and it's actually an emotional episode for me because I'm seeing two old friends. Flower, one of the organizers and founders of Silence Festival, and Avishek of Underside, one of Nepal's biggest bands. Now, it was my complete privilege to join them in Kathmandu 2 years ago and explore a world that I wasn't really prepared for. It startled me just how popular metal was in Nepal, certainly at least among the kids. It wasn't just about that, though. It was also just about how much they loved the music. It was how generous that scene is and how the community has now come together around a cause called Metal for Nepal. Now, Metal for Nepal came together years ago after the Great Kathmandu of 2015, which caused a nationwide humanitarian crisis. Now, since COVID, a new crisis has arisen. Metal for Nepal has mobilized, and I can't think of a better person to join in the conversation than Alex Skoknick of Testament, a true legend in the world of metal, but also one who, like me, has had the privilege of seeing firsthand just how special the scene in Nepal really is. Now, Kathmandu is an incredibly special city. I also went to Pokhara as well, and I can say what little I've seen in Nepal left me wanting to go back. And it also left me wanting to find a way, along with my co-founders of the World Metal Congress, trying to work out how can we help. And the best way for us to do that is to help to publicize Metal for Nepal and try and help those people. So without further ado, we're going to be joined by three wonderful people. Okay, and we are rolling. Can I just say a very warm and I guess multi-dimensional welcome to our guest today, who joined from all over the world. Flower in London, Avishek out in Pokhara in beautiful Nepal, and Alex Skoknick. Where are you in the world today?
I'm in beautiful Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Wow. I mean, well, I guess we're all experiencing the same thing from very different perspectives, certainly. But I guess that's one of the things that we're hoping to dive in today. But I guess if we could cast our mind back to a happier time, a year ago, which in some weird sense feels like 100 years ago. Because it just happened. I mean, Alex, did it surprise you to learn that there was a metal scene in Nepal?
No, but by that point, I knew about metal scenes in Angola and Iran, places I never would have expected. So I think had I not known about these other places, it might have surprised me, but by the time I found out about the scene in Nepal, it made perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, how would you explain that kind of global appeal? I mean, because there's so many things that are very culturally specific, and I mean, to my mind, as a longtime journalist and so on, it was just startling to me that somehow it seems to speak this language to so many people from so many different backgrounds. And why do you think it reaches so many different time zones?
Well, I think people are taking what they can get out of it. People get different meaning from it, and we're seeing that. We're seeing it's real. I mean, it's really been adopted by different parts of the world, and I think it's interesting because at least the music that I'm associated with mostly, and the whole genre at one time was just considered very American, even though it might have had its inspiration in Britain, with Black Sabbath and then new wave of British heavy metal. But then thrash metal, just the main wave of thrash metal bands, like the first wave, I guess you could say it's the big four: Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, and then Testament was sort of the next wave. But it was all, and then there was a wave after us, the new wave of American metal, Lamb of God, and so. But it was so American, and I think it's wonderful to see how it's been appreciated and adopted by other cultures that really. They apply the energy to their own situations. In some cases, they're dealing with their own oppressive governments, economic or whatever, but they're finding strength in the music, and I just think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think strength in the music, perhaps strength in the community as well. I mean, Avishek and Flower. I mean, I have to say, perhaps like Alex, but in a different sense, I have you to thank for an unforgettable experience traveling to Kathmandu, traveling.
Yeah,
around.
These guys did an amazing job with the festival. We had a great time.
No,
we're still talking about.
Always welcome back.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to go before all craziness started in the world.
We did get to see quite a bit.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, that was a really good week there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was
Alex even came to Pokhara, and we had quite a vacation as well. Yeah, we had a good time.
Well, it blew my mind because it wasn't just the amount of kind of just metalheads that were there. It was just every bar was just just absolutely full of fans of the music, and you're not talking about people that just like were enjoying on the jukebox. Like the kind of tribute bands that were playing on stage were just playing everything to like this absolute world-class standard. It was just like this. It didn't feel like, oh well, this is sort of popular here. It felt like it's like a natural religion. I mean, Avishek and Flower. I mean, we spent a little time in Freak Street, for instance, in Kathmandu, and so I mean, so where does the story of metal begin in Nepal? I mean, Alex was kind of tracing that really interesting history of like American metal, and I guess the Western sounds and all that. But where did it start for you? I mean, is it a recent development over there? I mean, did you grow up with it? Because I remember talking to you about tape trading and waiting 3 months for records to come through and so on. So I just wanted to explore a bit of that with you.
Yeah, I think it was the 60s. It was the hippie movement, like when that's basically how this was found more to the Western world, like when the hippies started coming in and like smoking weed, and pot was legal in that part of the town. That's called Free Street right now. So you used to sell hash like all out in the streets, like basking in the sun, and they used to get like loads of hippies and people coming in, and the rock and roll was like the thing happening at the time, and people adopted. And we are a tourism country, so our main thing is biggest source of income. One of the biggest source of income is tourism. So a lot of tourism came from the Western world. So I think they adopted the rock and roll thing was most picked up in that time, and that's how it goes to the bars that you said. That's a culture that has been sort of set since then. People left records while they went back. People got introduced to guitars or like bands. Someone left a guitar and some kid just picked up and started playing it. So it's kind of interesting, but that is that's like a little ahead of me.
Indeed, but I mean, I wonder. I mean, I guess we have limited time, but I mean, there's something about metal, to me that's always been about solidarity, and community, and that's something that seems to be repeated. And I wondered, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's easy to maintain a metal scene out in Nepal. I mean, from a political perspective, I mean, you guys seem to come up against a lot of resistance, like in order to make things. And I wondered, Flower, from your perspective, helping to run this beautiful Silence Festival, and so I mean, what are some of the challenges of running a metal festival in Kathmandu?
Well, I think Avishek would probably know a lot because it's his bread and butter, because he is there on the front line facing it. However, we've been doing it for so long, it's kind of everybody knows ins and out of those challenges. I have to admit, because I don't want to be so critical about how challenging the situations are. If we look back, I think it has progressed as we go along, right, Abhishek? Like, it's not as it used to be. Do not in any way suggest that we are anywhere like how it is in the Western circuit, for example. Just to give you a few of the very basic things that comes on top of my head would be dealing with the administration itself. The way how I still believe, although it's been relatively easier compared to the past, but still I think the government and the system doesn't really acknowledge us as anything other than just a bad influence of the Western civilizations and stuff like that. And I think that's like a little bit a shitty part of doing that. that's from the more like a political point of view. But then if you think about it, right, we are so far away, tucked in the laps of Himalayas. It's logistics can be a massive issue there. You know, the scale of the scene, the size of the scene, if I say, is not that massive. So although we want it to expand, just because of the size of the scene, the number of the people involved in the scene, that's, you know, everything, all those factors come into play. So it's like, even if we want to grow bigger, there's so little room to grow bigger, you know. But I guess like it's about like kind of just keep going on, and like, you know, just trying to make the best of what we have. But now I think, you know, we don't have a police intervening right in the middle of the show. Last time Testament was playing, so it was fun. Alex pushed out of the stage by a cop. That was a great achievement for us, because you know, there've been occasion, by the way, Alex, like where the headliners has been literally pushed out of the stage by the cops, you know.
I remember like when Textures were playing, so I was at the sound booth, and the cops came out of nowhere. So it was like their like fourth last song, and they just started kicking the sound booth, and they're like, shut it down, started hitting the rails of the shit, and they're like, and that the dude got so freaked, the sound engineer, obviously he would be like, what's going on? He just turns down the house, and the sound is still coming from the stage mix, right? So he's still like, shut it down. He's like, I've already turned it off, but the cop doesn't understand the monitors are on. It's not the house that is on, and we're like holding the rail, and the cops are kicking the bar. That was like not too long ago. So yeah.
No, that's not that too long ago. So
that was the third edition. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and all sort of things. You know, things like, you know, just not having enough sponsors. You know, not having you know, business and entities and brands trusting us as anything viable to sponsors. You know, and then that
seriously.
Right. And what that does is like you have only few people you can go to, or few brands if you like, and then what they do is they know you've got nobody else to do, right? So last year, you know, I'm just gonna be honest with you, even last year, man, like we had these sponsors, and we already had a deal with like how much they were going to sponsor for the festival. Festival is over. No, literally a day before festival, they just decided to drop half of the sponsorship just like that. Right, and and then what would you do, right? You don't have a choice. Either you leave that half as well and go home empty, or you just suck it up and then take it. And that sort of situation is quite, you know, prevailing.
Yeah.
Still,
we had like a written contract for like 3 years. They just dropped it. Yeah.
But this thing, I mean, there's so much about silence that's amazing, and it also has a very beautifully DIY vibe about it as well. I mean, Alex, what were your first impressions of, I mean, had you been to Nepal before? And what was your impression of Silence Festival and Kathmandu as a city?
I'd never been to Nepal. We had done a festival in Bangalore, India. That was about the closest we'd been in that part of the world. Yeah, we were all very excited to go. And it was, it's exciting. It just has, a very different feel, different energy. Things move really fast, like the cars, the traffic, like somehow it all seems coordinated. But to us, it feels like one of those old black and white movies where the film speed is sped up. And everything's moving fast, and here in the U.S., everything's so regulated, and we have lanes for the traffic, and just there's weaving in and out, and motorcycles weaving in and out, and it's just it's an exciting energy, and it's very scenically and beautiful. You know, the mountains were amazing. You know, it also has some areas that were still recovering from the earthquake a few years before. So it's it felt extremely different than some of the more Western places that we're used to visiting. but also just very honest. There's nothing pretentious about it. In a way, it was kind of refreshing because here in the U.S., you get so used to shopping malls and all these big name brands, and places just start to look the same and starts to feel like an advertisement. And out there, it felt very real. Yes, we're still dealing with the earthquake. Yes, we have other challenges, but it's also moving forward. And the hotel we stayed in was this would be a modern hotel, and there's it's got a modern side as well, and everybody's really friendly, and it was really fascinating. It just felt like this whole part of the world that we're aware of, but you need to be there to really get the feel of it. And we wish it wasn't so hard. It shouldn't be so rare for Westerners to visit there.
I mean, to me and to my mind, there was something so energizing about seeing a music scene that was just so charged up and so up for it. And I wondered, I mean, do you see any kind of parallels between the energy there and, let's say, the energy of like the early days of like that Bay Area Thrash Scene, where, this is before record labels were blitzing the music. It was before really it had the world's attention. Before it was there, it was something underground. And I wondered if you saw any kind of parallels there and just the kind of the energy and the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the guys, maybe it was Flower, was saying that there's challenges with the government kind of looking down upon them and giving them a hard time.
Yeah.
And it definitely reminds me of the early days doing heavy metal shows back when, and ironically, when it was less accepted by, conventional society. There was something, I think more almost, I don't know if pure is the word, but there was this sense that it was us against the world, and it had a credibility. The fact that politicians didn't like it. We had U.S. politicians speaking out against it at the time. In fact, there was a big movement in our federal government. They were more focused on groups like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Satanism and that whole thing. But Dee Snider, who I've gotten to be friends with from Twisted Sister, he actually appeared along with Frank Zappa at that hearing. And to me, that moment really represented something where it was us against them. And I feel like now we're in this strange juxtaposition because we've got politicians that are actually fans of the music, and there's police that are fans of the same people that we used to be at odds with. They like the music, but it's so weird now because now they've all joined forces, and now there's even people in the bands that sound like the politicians from back then. And they've sort of, I think, as the music developed and as people got older and they became adults, some of them have become conservative. So in the U.S., there's this whole movement of conservative metal fans, which is something I never would have imagined. And you can look on any metal website and any comment section to get an idea of that. So to make my point, when I go to a place like Nepal, or I hear about a scene in Angola or Afghanistan or Iran, where they're actually at odds with the government. Yeah, like it feels more authentic to me, and it feels more like the original days of our scene than what's happening in the United States today.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a interesting and compelling viewpoint, because I think that much of what the World Metal Congress is about is it's almost like finding those new battlegrounds, those new places of conflict and so on. Yeah, because I agree. It is just a music that's all about giving people a voice sometimes, and also it's a refuge and like a sanctuary. And I guess so much of what's brought us together is the fact that there's a wonderful scene in Nepal, but there is also an incredible cause that's come out of Nepal as well. And so I wondered if we could kind of get an overview of Metal for Nepal, which I think is just such a brilliant expression of what metal is capable of when we do kind of act like a scene, and when we do kind of rally around it all. Where did it come from, and what is it aiming to solve?
I think I'll jump into that one. So, I mean, for now, like for what's going on now, like we just started it as a non-profit organization since March. Once a video surfaced online about like thousands of migrant workers trying to return home from India, and then due to the lockdown, they were kind of stranded in the border with for days with no access to food and water, type of thing. That really got me. And then when we come across that video, and then the initial knee-jerk reaction was to let's just do something about this. So the initial idea was just get in touch with the person who was uploading the video. By the way, see, later on we work with our organization on the front line as well once we set up the thing. But initially the plan was to just like, let's do something on our personal level. I contacted Avishek, and we kind of just made up an idea and saying like, let's just do something about it. And a day later, we were thinking about it, and I just felt like perhaps here we can do something more than that, And Metal for Nepal, the concept itself is not something that we just created. It was created in 2015 earthquake by our dear friend Randy in Switzerland from the band Voice 3. So what he did then, bless him, was basically he started this series of fundraising gigs. We started in Switzerland, but then it kind of got like, wildfire sort of thing, and it spanned across 12 countries where, random bands will just, put a show with the banner Metal for Nepal, will raise whatever money they got from the show, and then they would, get in touch with Metal for Nepal, and they will donate that money. And I thought I think that kind of literally was a light bulb moment for us to realize, oh my God, this is like literally a global family, like I still remember there was a band from Brazil reaching out saying, we have raised $50 for your project. And I thought that itself, I was like, dude, we're in Nepal and you're in Brazil. And it just felt like, oh my God, this is literally one world. So the next day we were just like, how about we literally start the same thing again, because that's all we ever know, this is what we all know. And we were just like, let's just start the same campaign again. But this time, we try and start it as a non-profit organization, because we felt, because we already experienced the power of global metal community in 2015. The only difference between then and now is like, of course, like it was one of very tragic incident what happened in Nepal, but then after earthquake was done, it was done, like the whole world wasn't suffering around with us. So it was, in a way, it was relatively easier to unite the force as well. However, now, sorry, do you want to say something, Alex?
Yeah, well, I mean,
no, just listening.
If I could just jump in there, I mean, just to frame it, I mean, the earthquake was devastating, right? I mean, just the seeing the destruction up close, even years afterward, was completely eye-opening to me, So the fact that Metal for Nepal mobilized to try and better people's situation, I thought was an extraordinary, achievement. But I mean, what I wanted to frame was what is the humanitarian crisis now? What exactly is happening at the border? I mean, this is a direct consequence of COVID, as I understand it.
Right. I think because it's such a dynamic process now, right? It's ongoing issues, right? So how it started, the nature and the face of the problem is ever changing every single day. Like the border issues we sparked the whole fire in us to start this project is almost non-existent now, because there's only so many daily wage workers gonna return home, and I think that has kind of subsidized in their own way, but not I wouldn't say non-existent, but it's not as prime as it was when we started the project. But then that wasn't the only one side of we were focusing on. There was other impacts within the country, like for example, even in Kathmandu, we had like thousands of daily wage workers who literally rely on working every single day to make their needs met in the evening, so these were the people who were badly affected as well. So one of the things what it has empowered us in a way is to be able to go and make a difference in probably, go and touch the untold stories, go and make differences in people's life which are almost forgotten, and now like we've got a lot of school kids who don't have luxury to have online educations, who are going to school. We are going and feeding these kids in the school. We went to some labor workers in a brick factory very recently where in Kathmandu, right? And we've given them like a ration for a month, and it's like what we're doing is right, because we are not a charity by default, and we don't have these all ideas on how to run these projects and things like that. So we are kind of learning as we go along, but at the same time we are, whatever comes across us where we see sufferings, we try our best to elevate that in whatever way possible, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what's so wonderful about it all, is that it just seems to have a genuine humanitarian aim, and it just serves an immediate need. I mean, Alex, this is a long way from being accused of Satanism by the PMRC, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it just puts a bullet point on the fact that that how ridiculous that was, the whole accusations of people. Anybody who listens to this music is, a degenerate and to be feared and not a right member of society. And I mean, those of us who have been there for a long time, we always knew, it's not a call for judgment just because you like this music that sounds radical to some people. Obviously, if you're not used to it, and especially in that time period in the 1980s, like just drums played that fast, guitar played with that sound that's just brutal, and I haven't even gotten to the vocals. The vocals are just scary. So it freaked a lot of people out. But I think at this point in time, it's understood that just because people do play scary music or listen to scary music, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily scary. And the Metal For Nepal organization is probably the finest example of that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like, Alex, that that metal, or even just musicians more broadly, they should use their platform to become politically outspoken? Because I mean, just to shift out of Nepal just for a moment, I mean, you could say that these are fairly interesting times politically speaking around the world.
Understand.
Indeed. And I mean, you recently became very well, I mean, I guess to my ears, hilariously active on Twitter. Just about like the upcoming U.S. elections and all that. I mean, is that an easy decision for you to make? Because of course, I guess there's always that razor's edge. You're going to piss fans off. You might alienate some people, but you seem to almost be goading them on.
Well, I don't know if you've checked Twitter today, but I
did, Alex. By the way,
I love the rap though. I love the rap
today. We're like within a couple hours of me dropping something that takes it farther than I've taken it before. Like the furthest. And
I'm excited for that.
It feels very natural for me. It's part of the reason I got into music, and specifically hard rock and metal being my main interest when I was young and starting out, was the honesty and the directness and the fact that, I'm not going to fall in line and not say what I'm thinking. Yet so many people do that. And so now, with so much going on and so much that needs to be addressed, especially here in the US, as we're 3 weeks away from this election that has more people on edge than at any point in my lifetime, and people much older than me say the same thing. There's no way to not speak out about it. So I can't imagine keeping quiet about it. And as it, I think a lot of folks are asking themselves, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And for me, I have, creative ideas that I can't always apply to every musical project, such as rap and hip hop. But yet somehow, when you see the track I released today, you'll see, my favorite 80s rap and hip hop has found its way into a song that kind of blends that with Van Halen, a tribute, Eddie, may he rest in peace, with Frank Zappa, may he rest in peace. So, so I'm finding ways to be creative. I figure you might as well. I can't not say anything, and to me, to do it in a creative way, and in a way that's fun. I think that it's a fine line. It's difficult to have fun right now with all that's going on, but at the same time, like, we need to have fun. I think we need moments of fun. So that's where I figure if I have the creative ideas to do it, and I need to express how I feel about these issues, I'm going to do it. And the hate comments, I'm entertained by those. I think it's hilarious. Like, people are, if somebody is so offended by what I'm saying, and they feel compelled to put, Trump 2020 and, you suck, you're the worst guitarist in the world. Some of my favorite musicians are people I play with. They seem to think I'm a pretty good guitarist. So some Trump fan saying I suck isn't going to affect how I feel. And I'm just, and it is ridiculous. I've even had some conversations with some of them that end up okay. A lot of them, there's this whole mentality of just, people want, it's almost like, I find like the comment sections, it's like their version of being on stage. Sometimes they're performing for the other commenters. And it's like, okay, how outrageous can I get? How much can I knock this guy down? And then sometimes you engage with them and you find out, okay, they're maybe a little conservative, but they're not, they've just been watching too much right-wing television.
Yeah.
And I've had a surprising number of constructive conversations with them. There are some people you cannot reach. And I know it's not, but more often than not, it ends up being constructive, and I'm enjoying it, and I think, and I'm even hearing from people that are enjoying the music, even if they don't agree with it right away, and maybe it plants a seed for them to at least think about these issues.
Indeed, indeed. I mean, this is the interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, because we're talking about, the Bay Area, just like, metal in the 80s and where it is now. And, I think one of the things that, many fans of the music in the West perhaps might not always appreciate is that they can express themselves probably however they want without political consequences, right? Right. Avishek, when I was interviewing you for the first time, I remember you telling me some startling stories about the early days of Underside and what it would take to kind of play public shows simply because of the issues that the local authorities would have. Just like what were some of those early experiences that you had? You're talking about cops coming on stage and breaking up shows and all that kind of stuff. There were serious consequences to doing what you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, it was Basically, it was at that time the civil war, the civil war just ended, and there was a big pull and push going on with the government itself, and the cops hated us then more than ever because there was such a high tension, and like every time there was something loud happening at a bar, or not just metal, but like metal was like the first target. So if you get on stage and like if it just starts playing, and you never know when they're gonna come in. Like we had once we were playing with our band before Underside, and like we went back and like between one song they had like 14 riot police come and chase away like 400 people out of the gig, and it was just the police left when I turned back. We had moments when they come on stage and drag you out with their hair, pull your instruments, beat you off the stage, and then they'll take you and they'll take you in your car and they'll take you and they'll like harass you more and then like leave you the next day. They just had this, and these were people who were from very rural areas and who had suffered themselves so, and who had been power tripped by their seniors, and the way they would show it off, as I understand that now as an adult, that's how I see that these people come and that's where to take it out on people who look like a little different than anyone with long hair or wearing black dress or with like any piercings. So that was their release to come and power trip on us and like show us their power and just like abuse of authority. So it's like it was pretty brutal back in the day, and like the older we go, the more horror stories we get.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were fearing for your safety. I mean, this was more than just convenience, right?
Yep. Yeah, you never knew what was going to happen. Like, even not just the police was the main issue, but also the crowd was like really crazy at the time. Like we had like fights going on, and like it was like gang scenes and all that stuff in the middle of that. But like the police were the most brutal ones. They were the most feared gang. You never know where they come out of, and like, they're like the legal gangsters of this country. You never know where they're going to come out and do whatever they want to you.
Yeah, well, I guess some of them might be Underside fans by now, perhaps. You know, maybe.
We just had a video with, so just like this rapper, this kid, like he's a good rapper and he's pretty popular. He was in jail for like 14 days just because he had a music video where he was like holding some weed in his hand and he was wearing a fake police uniform. They just arrested him out of his studio and took him in without no clause, no possible, nothing in the law, just kept him in jail for 14 days. So like, even like that's last year, not even last year. So,
and Underside, you haven't hesitated from confronting some political issues. I think it was Godamite, right? That just
I think it was more. Yeah, Godamite was more about religious. I think Wild was the last one where we had shown the police and the politician and how the city works. Exactly the stuff I was describing you to about like the legal gangster and the illegal gangsters working together. Yeah.
I mean, which it's a brave move. I mean, that has potential ramifications for your ability to play. And
we did give a few thoughts about it. Flower, remember the conversations we had about that as well?
Yeah. So I was about to just say, Avishek, how long ago was it when the police will just, if they find you with long hair and tattoos, they will just arrest you, take you to the prison cell for that night, call your parents next day, cut your hair, and then
I think it's like
such a straight. Violation of human rights, right? But it was what, like 5, 6, 7 years ago?
6 years ago. I guess that it keeps on popping. There's always this new super cop who wants to show his power, and then he picks the people with long hair first who listen to heavy metal, and just like that's his first move to show that he's a nice cop is by cutting kids' hair in the middle of the road, arresting them, and like bringing the parents in and shit. Stupid guys.
Yeah, so if Alex invoked the name D. Snyder, if ever there was a song for which we're not going to take it was written.
Yeah,
it's shit like that, and I mean, in some way, it kind of feels like perhaps we're all unified around this idea. Alex has been very vocal on Twitter and what you guys do. That when you have the platform and when you can say something, you should say something. I kind of feel like we're all kind of aligned there, and it's like your obligation. But I guess it's not just about expressing your thoughts, it's also about action as well. And Alex, does it frustrate you that more people aren't outspoken, perhaps because they're worried about the consequences to maybe sales or just losing audience? Because it's always got to be an internal debate, like maybe we should pipe down or whatever else. And I frequently see outspoken musicians publicly being told, well, you're an artist, just like, what could you possibly know? I mean, that seems impossibly short-sighted to me, but it seems the most common retort.
Yeah, it's incredible. I expect that with every post, every headline I get, and I get a disproportionate number of these headlines. Stick to music. What do you know? They compare me to like Hollywood, which is the funniest thing, because like I have nothing to do with Hollywood, and I live like a very normal person. Testament was never like Def Leppard or even Metallica. Like kind of the middle, maybe slightly upper middle class of socioeconomic groups on the band compared to some bands. We're not like a 1% band, but they'll still. It's it's a common trope. What do you know? Stick to guitar. Like you're not allowed to have an opinion, but it's only because when they disagree with you. I've never had anybody say, I feel the exact same way. I'm voting for who you're voting for, but I don't want to hear this. It's always because you're challenging them, and they don't want to be challenged. And I just accept it, and I find it very hypocritical, because no metal fan doesn't appreciate Black Sabbath, but then you look at some of these Black Sabbath on War Pigs, which is basically about Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger. Into the Void is about they're spending all this money for space exploration, which is a good thing, but they're also forgetting about poverty and disease, and this social helping the population. So, music from Hendrix to Black Sabbath to, not so much metal as much, but like Crosby, Stills and Nash and Dylan, it's always had this element. But that was okay. This is really strange. I have to share something. I just mentioned Crosby, Stills and Nash, and I've been in the headlines because David Crosby said something dismissive about Van Halen.
He said meh.
Yeah, he said meh. So
what? I know.
No, it was terrible, and I said, here's how he should have, and he has apologized, but people are piling on, and I sort of defended him. I said, yes, he needs to do better, but let's not forget. Anyway, he just liked my tweet. So
wow.
I just got a notification. David Crosby liked your.
Wow. I think
that's one of these weird things like that happen to me sometimes.
Well, I mean, I think that might be.
I don't know if you could see that.
That's incredible. No, wow. David Crosby liked his tweet.
Right now.
Recorded for all time. But I think that might
anyway. So that's protest music, and so it's just so hypocritical to say don't talk about politics. Sorry.
And I have to say I'm amazed that we recorded that, because I literally think that's the first time that peace has been made on the internet. Literally, the how incredible. But I guess this is the thing, though, isn't it? Because we're talking about activism and also having a political voice, not wasting the opportunity to do so. I mean, one of the things that always inspired me about discovering metal music coming from around the world was just the kind of fearlessness that a lot of musicians had in expressing themselves, in doing what they do, because frequently it was at personal risk, to themselves, sometimes their families, and it kind of gave it like a sort of energy, that sometimes I think can be forgotten, in the places where a lot of metal music came from, and that's what I found so inspiring about going to places like Nepal, Kathmandu, just experiencing what the crowds are like, seeing the music there, and feeling like, wow, this is something that is vibrant. And I kind of feel like that's something that we can learn from, perhaps, in the West, is, just from these scenes that are just absolutely magnificent. I mean, I'm conscious we're running out of time just a little bit, and just to bring it back toward the purpose of Metal for Nepal and so on. What can people do who want to support the humanitarian crisis in Nepal? Where should they go, and where is any of their support going to benefit?
So we have a website, www.metalfornepal.org. And to actually elaborate just a little bit, we have the biggest festival of the year coming in the Nepal. Like, it's more like Christmas for Nepal. It's coming in a week or two. So this is when everyone's eating. And me and a couple of my friends, other musicians, we're going on a walk. We're walking for 150 kilometers on the very day of the festival. We're starting where everything's closed, and we're doing a fundraiser. So like $25 would be able to feed a family of 5 for 1 month. So this is like for 1 month. Yeah, that's a family of 5, $25 would feed a family of 5 for 1 month. So you can go to the page www.metalfornepal.org and donate, or you can buy art, or we have merch if you want to donate by any other means. And you can go to our social media handles following the same thing. Oh yeah, you're doing it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. We have some interesting people just going in. We're going to be going live and walking for 72 hours and try to do as much fundraising. And then we're going to cross about 2,450 meters. We're going to cross like 2 hills and then go to the south of the country. It's going to be like 4 days walk. And then we're going to go to a community of boaters, people who work in the very base level of the tourism industry, like who do boating and who take care of the elephants and animals. And we're going to meet all the families and like give them something for the festival, and 2 other locations like that. And yeah, and it's going to be good. So yeah, you can go to those avenues and donate in any way you can, or just raise awareness. Even that is just as good as donating.
Alex, it's inspirational, isn't it? I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, completely. Yeah, it's really great what these guys are doing. It's for a good cause. It makes us all look good.
Yeah.
And it's really worth doing. And it's it was great to see these guys doing it. And,
yeah.
Thank you for all the support you've given us so far, man. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Keep doing what you guys are doing. It's great. Yeah.
Well,
it also gave me a great excuse to relearn this song that.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's such a nice thing, Alex. If I may, at the end, when we started the campaign, of course, like in 2015, Metal for Nepal was a series of fundraising gigs, so everybody was doing gigs, right? In this present scenario, there's no gigs, so we had to kind of adapt on how we're gonna work around it. And the idea was like, okay, how about we asked them, like, people we've come to know in the last 10 years of doing festivals and traveling with the bands, maybe they can send us a little play along video, of whatever song they want to play, and perhaps that could kind of spark. But we were really skeptical on how that will play out. And it was such a humbling and kind of our dear friend Alex, who was one of the first few person who were just like, dude, I mean, I'm gonna probably do a special song, and he had to even learn that song apparently because he hasn't played for long. And that kind of really sparked fire in us, saying like, if Alex only think it's cool, probably it is cool, So
it is cool.
Go for it.
So yeah, thank you ever so much for that. I think that kind of really kind of exposed us.
It set the bar.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When we ask others, like, dude, Alex Skoknick's done it, you can't say no.
Yeah, a lot of people have, like, a lot of bands followed after that, and not just that, like, we are kind of like a little bit that much. I would say not known as much as we are here in the UK when it comes to America. And because of that video, because we, like Avishek mentioned earlier, Alex, we sell a lot of merchandise on the website because we collaborate with a lot of tattoo artists. And of course we need to give shout out to these all amazing tattoo artists from across the world who's been so phenomenally kind to us, donating their art, doing auctionings on their own website, like pages, and donating money to the cause. So because
we also have filmmakers now who are making vlogs for us and small updates. So now it's even filmmakers are into it. and making small videos for us and contributing in their own way and raising awareness. Like,
of course, yeah, and it's just such a great thing that's happening, and you know, all the t-shirts are here, so I physically post these things, you know, and in last like a month or two, the number of like, you know, merchandise I have to send to America, it's just unreal, you know.
Okay, well, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Good to see you. Thank you.
You do.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program. And I mean, thank you so much for joining us and for inspiring us, you know, with the work that you're doing. So to reemphasize, it's metalfornepal.org, where people can go to visit. They can wear the shirt, which I'm modeling very poorly, and check out some other merchandise as well. I think the most important thing that they should probably know, above all else, is that $25 can feed a family for a month, which is
family of 5.
Yeah. Indeed, indeed. Amazing things. Well, a pleasure to see you again, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Alex. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And that just about does us for the latest episode of the World Metal Congress webcast. Visit us at worldmetalcongress.org. Sign up for the newsletter and stay tuned for future episodes. We'd also love to hear from you, so let us know what you like, what you don't like. Remember to be nice, and also remember to stay metal. Thanks so much for watching.